The 1970s wasn't just about bell-bottoms and disco music. For a kid like me, growing up back then, it felt like living in a weird, wonderful laboratory of technological dreams. Some of those dreams went on to become the future we live in now. But others? Well, others were just wonderfully bizarre contraptions that flashed brightly for a moment and then disappeared. Today, in Part 1, we're opening up the time capsule to look back at the dawn of digital and some of the strangest entertainment gadgets the 70s ever dreamed up. The picture phone. We'd all seen it in science fiction movies. That incredible dream of talking to someone on the phone and actually seeing their face. Then, in 1970, Bell Telephone tried to make it a reality with the picture phone. My dad, who was an engineer, was absolutely fascinated by it. It was a genuine video call, decades before the internet. But then he saw the price, $160 a month plus a per-minute fee. In 1970, that was more than a car payment. It was an outrageous amount of money. The idea was brilliant, but the world just wasn't ready. You could only call other people who had one, and almost nobody did. It was a futuristic telephone in a world without a network, a genius idea that was born about 30 years too soon. The Magnavox Odyssey. I remember seeing it for the first time at my friend Richie's house, and I was just speechless. It was the Magnavox Odyssey, the world's very first home video game console. It didn't make a sound, it had no cartridges, and to play tennis, you had to physically tape a plastic tennis court overlay onto your television screen. It sounds completely ridiculous now, doesn't it? The players were just little white dots that you moved with big clunky dials. But back then, sitting on that shag carpet, staring at the screen, it felt like we were controlling magic. This was it, the big bang of home video games. A strange, silent, and wonderfully bizarre machine that started a revolution right there in Richie's living room. The Telstar Arcade. After the Odyssey, the race was on to create the next big thing in gaming. In 1977, Coleco released something that looked like it came from another planet, the Telstar Arcade. I remember seeing the box in a Sears catalog and just being blown away by the design. Its funky triangular shape was pure 70s sci-fi. And the best part? It had 3 built-in controllers. On one side, there was a steering wheel for racing games. On another, a light gun for shooting games. And on the third, paddle controls for classics like Pong. It was like having 3 arcade machines in one compact unit, a genius idea to give you more bang for your buck. But it was expensive, and its production was short-lived, making it a rare collector's item today. The Altair 8800. This next one wasn't for playing games, it was for building the future itself. In 1975, the Altair 8800 arrived, and it's often considered the spark that ignited the personal computer revolution. But this was not a computer like we know it. It came as a build-it-yourself kit. It had no screen, no keyboard, no mouse. You programmed it by flipping a series of metal switches on the front panel, and it would give you answers by flashing a series of little red lights. It was incredibly primitive, but for the first generation of computer hobbyists and geniuses like Bill Gates and Paul Allen, who wrote software for it, this was the machine that changed everything. It was the first time that a regular person could own a computer if they were brave enough to build it themselves. The HP 35 Scientific Calculator. Before this device came along, my dad, like every other engineer, carried around a slide rule. It was a complicated tool of wood and plastic that he used for complex calculations. Then, in 1972, Hewlett-Packard released the HP 35. It was the world's first handheld scientific calculator, and it made the slide rule obsolete almost overnight. This little pocket-sized powerhouse could handle logarithms, trigonometry, and more, all at the push of a button. It felt like something out of a spy movie, a tiny electronic brain that could solve any problem. It was expensive, but for the scientists and engineers who bought one, it was a revolutionary tool that changed their world. The Pulsar digital watch. Speaking of things that looked like they were from a spy movie, let's talk about the digital watch. In 1972, the Pulsar P1 arrived, and it looked like the future had landed on your wrist. There were no ticking hands, just a dark crystal screen. To see the time, you had to press a button, which would cause glowing red LED numerals to light up for a second. It felt incredibly high-tech, and it had a price tag to match. The first models cost over $2,000. That was more than a new Ford Pinto. It was a luxury item for the rich and famous. But it was the beginning of a revolution that would eventually bring cheap, accurate, digital time to everyone. The Speak and Spell. This is one I remember vividly. My younger sister got one for her birthday in 1978. The Texas Instruments Speak and Spell. That bright orange, futuristic-looking toy was one of the first to use a single-chip speech synthesizer. And its robotic voice is a core memory for my generation. It would ask you to spell a word, and you would type it in on the chunky keyboard. It made learning feel like a game, like you were interacting with a friendly robot tutor. It became even more famous after its cameo in the movie E.T., the Extraterrestrial, where E.T. used it to phone home. It was a simple, brilliant toy that sparked a curiosity for technology in millions of kids. Quadraphonic stereo systems. In the 70s, we all had stereos with 2 speakers. But for the serious audiophiles, the ultimate dream was quadraphonic sound. This was an ambitious experiment with 4-channel audio, a predecessor to modern surround sound. You'd have 4 speakers placed in the corners of your room, and when you played a specially mixed album from bands like the Eagles or Pink Floyd, the music would surround you. It sounded incredible, but it was a complicated and expensive setup. You needed a special receiver and 4 speakers, and not many albums were released in the format. It was a brilliant idea that was just too complex for the average home, a high-fidelity dream that never quite caught on. The capacitance electronic disc, CED Player. If quadraphonic sound was a strange idea for audio, the CED Player from RCA was its video equivalent. This was a system that played movies on vinyl-like discs using a stylus, just like a record player. It was a bizarre, analog solution to a modern problem. The disc was housed in a plastic caddy to protect it from dust. You'd insert the whole caddy, and the machine would pull the disc out internally to play it. The biggest problem was that the discs could skip if they were scratched, and the quality would get worse with each play as the stylus wore down the grooves. It was a fascinatingly strange piece of technology that was ultimately defeated by the convenience of the VCR. Intel Bubble Memory. And finally, we have a piece of technology that sounds like pure science fiction: bubble memory. In the late 70s, Intel and other companies developed this new form of data storage that used tiny magnetic bubbles on a thin film of a magnetic material. It was a solid-state memory with no moving parts, which made it very durable. It was used in some early computers, video games, and machine tool controllers. The idea was brilliant, and for a time, many thought it would become the future of data storage. But it was expensive to produce, and as other forms of memory, like flash memory, became cheaper and faster, bubble memory just burst, fading into a strange and forgotten chapter of tech history. From video phones that cost a fortune to home games you had to tape to your television, the 70s was a decade that wasn't afraid to dream, even if some of those dreams were a little weird. These strange gadgets are more than just forgotten plastic. They're a reminder of a time of bold imagination and fearless innovation. Join us for part 2, where we'll look at the gadgets that shaped the groovy lifestyle of the 70s. If you enjoyed this journey, please give it a like and subscribe for more.